Oh, that's nice.
County was lifted at 11:15 a.m. this morning by the governor in a press conference he held shortly after 11 o'clock. That means a lot to Beaufort County, but there's also different meanings to how we progress forward. Not necessarily in the evacuation of Beaufort County, but things that have already been done in Beaufort County, such as schools, government offices closing, and all those things. So we've got enough people here in the room to hopefully address that because I'm sure that's probably going to be a part of y'all's questions. Neil Baxley is here with us too to answer any questions you may have about the storm, what conditions we're going to remain under, and what we'll do over the next several days. And then we got representations, of course, from all the municipalities in Beaufort County. Here, I don't, except for maybe Bluffton. So, Scott, there it goes. Okay. All right, Neil, you want to talk about the storm and where we're at?
Sir. Good morning, everybody. The National Weather Service, the National Hurricane Center did their update at 11 o'clock. And as is normal with these hurricanes, these tropical systems, the track wavers. When they did their 5 a.m. update this morning, Beaufort County had moved south of the error cone. As of 11 a.m., we have slipped back into the edge of it. So this just gives rise to how difficult the tracking and the forecasting is for the weather experts. And we rely on the experts at the National Weather Service in Charleston for our local impact situation, and the National Hurricane Center in Miami for the overall big picture. They own the airplanes, they own the satellites, and the computers that do all of this. So we rely heavily on all of their judgment. With us being slightly back in the cone, we remain in a full readiness posture. We were prepared to implement the governor's evacuation order at noontime. We have the support of the Highway Patrol, the State Department of Natural Resources, Triple P, the parole, probation, and pardon folks, the Army National Guard to implement this. They're in Beaufort County in force, and they're in standby mode right now waiting. They're not going to leave just because the evacuation order has been lifted. We remain ready in case this track continues to shift southward. As the governor has said a number of times, we prepare for the worst and hope for the best. And that's where we're at. So we'll continue to do that. You'll continue to see a large presence of law enforcement ready to implement if we have to. and hopefully we will not. It takes a lot of preparation to get here. We plan all year, every year for an event like this, hundreds of meetings, planning sessions, this sort of thing, and the plan is working exactly as advertised. Every piece has fit exactly as it should. So we're in great shape in Beaufort County, ready to move forward. Should the storm continue on the current track and go into either northern South Carolina or southeastern North Carolina, it is forecast to be a major hurricane, at least Category 3 strength or greater, which will result in catastrophic damage. We are now prepared also at that point to assist our neighbors to the north in any fashion that they should ask. And at that point, whatever resources they request, we'll be transitioning and moving them up there, whether it's law enforcement, fire equipment, damage assessment folks, finance assistance folks, whatever we need that we have, all the municipalities and Beaufort County are ready to assist. And we've been discussing that this morning, thinking forward. What would we be able to do? And everybody is fully committed to supporting our neighbors to the north. Pretty much that's where we're at right now. I'll touch quickly. County offices are closed today. They will remain closed tomorrow. And then we'll be reevaluating, and this is based again on the track uncertainty. Schools are also closed today. Schools will be closed tomorrow, and again be reevaluating based on the track uncertainty. If it continues to do this nudge back to the west and southwest, we'll react accordingly. That's pretty much everything on my notes at the moment, sir.
I want to let everyone here know, in case you do have a question, it won't take but a second to bring those folks forward. We got Mayor Bennett that's here from Town of Hilton Head, Tom Keaveney, Paul Somerville, County of Beaufort, Steve Riley, also from Hilton Head, Van Willis, Port Royal, Billy Kaiserling, Mayor from Beaufort's here, Scott Marshall from the Town of Bluffton. So we've got, if you've got questions, for any of these folks about the city of Beaufort, Bluffton, Port Royal, or any kind of county movements, those folks are here. So if you've got a question for them, ask it, and we'll bring them forward and hopefully can provide some information. Again, Neil touched on schools. We're actually evaluating that as we progress through the day to determine whether we can do it sooner than later. Also, county government. Tom, you want to comment on the county government side? Either you or Paul. I think you.
Good afternoon. My name is Tom Keaveney, and I'm the interim county administrator for Beaufort County. We have been monitoring the situation since Friday. Excuse me. When we heard the governor's decision to lift the evacuation order for Beaufort County, the chairman of county council and I started talking with other representatives of the other governmental entities to see if we could agree on a coordinated an approach going forward. A lot of families have presumably taken steps to evacuate. A lot of families have children. A lot of the teachers who are here in Beaufort County are probably gone, and so the school will be closed. We understand the schools will be closed tomorrow. In deference to that, and out of uncertainty about what the storm will do, we've decided to have our government offices remain closed tomorrow. We'll monitor the developments today, and we'll make an announcement later today or maybe tomorrow about what we will be doing on Thursday and Friday. That's where we are right now. Paul, is anything else? Thank you.
Any questions for Tom or Paul? Mayor Bennett, you or Steve?
Good afternoon, Mayor Bennett from Hilton Head Island. I really wanted to just take this opportunity to thank the county, thank Mr. Riley, Mr. Gruber, thank Sheriff Tanner and all his team for the work that they did to respond to the situation, to prepare us for the worst, as Colonel Baxley suggested. And we're delighted to know that it appears very likely that we will receive minimal impact from the storm. That's not for certain, but the governor did rescind the evacuation order, and so all Hilton Head Island citizens if you've evacuated, you can come home. As I understand, it's Mr. Riley's call as to whether the town hall will open. I understood he indicated that tomorrow town hall will remain closed for staff, and this week, as far as public meetings are concerned, they will remain canceled until next week, when we will resume as normal. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Mayor Billy? Scott, you going to need anything from Bluffton too? Okay.
Thank you, Sheriff and Colonel Baxley, for your leadership. It looks like a good day for us, and unfortunately not for others. But as I've told people all morning who said, can we just stay? Can we just stay? I said, that's not my call. But the call has been made. The city will open back on Wednesday in concert with the county government. We're obviously around. We're part of the team collaborating. I've just been told that we completed fabricating sandbags. There was a huge line of people lined up today, and very proud of our people for what they've done to prepare. Thank you.
Scott? Van, you good? Okay.
Good afternoon. I'm Scott Marshall, Deputy Town Manager for the town of Bluffton. Just want to say that our Bluffton Emergency Operations Center is fully staffed and will be fully staffed and remain active throughout the duration of this event. They are in close coordination with the County Emergency Operations Center. They are in place. Town Manager Mark Orlando is maintaining close contact with Mayor Sulka and all members of council, and any information that needs to be put out that is particular to the Bluffton community can be found on our Facebook page as well as our website, and I urge you to go to those sites for the latest information and contact us if you have any questions at all, and you will get a response. I would like to thank the Sheriff and Colonel Baxley for their leadership during this event so far, but we do urge you to not relax your posture just yet. Maintain your readiness, because as Colonel Baxley mentioned, the storm has a history of taking turns, and it may not be through yet taking turns. So watch closely, monitor closely, and keep your guard up. That's it. Thank you.
Highway Patrol?
We will keep a large people. Good afternoon. I'm Captain Gil Owens, the Incident Commander for the Hurricane Evacuation here in the Southern Conglomerate, which also consists of Colleton and Jasper counties, including Hampton as well. We have a large contingency of troopers down here, 135 SEDPS personnel here. We're going to remain at the ready. We're not going to leave you hanging, even though the mandatory evacuation order has been lifted. We're going to remain steady. We're going to settle down a little bit, get a little bit of rest, but we're ready to move at a moment's notice. If traffic does start picking up, we need to get people out of here. So we're going to stay until the end and be prepared if the worst happens. Thanks.
Thank you, Gil. You know, one of the things that I think everyone's touched on, I know that Colonel Baxley did earlier, and I actually had a question for Neil to try to figure out a mathematical equation for me, and we were looking at the HERVAC, and so the question is this, and this is how well the state has the analysis done by the state and the National Weather Service. This thing is scientific and mathematical at the same time. And I think they do an outstanding job, and even though you can't predict the end result, you can give a pretty good prediction on some movements. You know, the meteorologists and all those that are involved in this process, I mean, we got to give them credit for what they do, because it really helps us. Even though we get armchair quarterback every moment of every day through this process, things are done for a reason. So I'll give you the scientific opportunity to figure this out. You take a storm the size of this particular storm, Florence, and you put it 900 miles offshore of the coast of South Carolina and North Carolina and Georgia and Florida. And that storm is 900 miles away, and it's moving at 15 miles an hour. and it's a Category 3 or 4 storm with winds from anywhere from 120 to 145 miles an hour. Now, if it stays on a permanent route, you can pretty well dictate where that landfall is going to be. I mean, you draw a straight line from the storm to some portion of the coast, and you've got it figured out. But that storm at 900 miles offshore, if it moves a mile south or a mile north, what is the impact going to be on the shoreline from Florida to New Jersey, New York? The answer is you don't know, because the storm, any little movement from a storm that's 900 miles away from our shoreline, any movement one way or another will impact the shoreline by hundreds of miles. The slight movement. So I think all in all that everyone in this that's been involved in this process with Hurricane Florence has done an outstanding job. The predictions I think were spot on. We appreciate the governor rescinding the evacuation order at 11:15 today. That is not an easy decision for the governor to make, but the governor, of course, with staff, took everyone's information and concerns about the impacts of an evacuation on Beaufort County, and the fact that the average citizen, and most of them that are armchair quarterbacking this event, are looking at the Weather Channel and other opportunities to look at a cone of the track of a storm, and when they see that Beaufort County or the lower part of South Carolina is not in that cone any longer, then of course they get very relaxed and they start taking things for granted. So we are not going to let that happen. Our social media over the next days will continue to pump out information about the storm. It's still a very, very dangerous storm, and it still is very dangerous to the coast of South Carolina in all aspects, including Beaufort County. So everyone needs to be aware. Our assets with the National Guard and the Highway Patrol and all the other law enforcement agencies that are involved, those assets will remain on standby here in Beaufort County. We're not changing anything. The only thing that's changed today is the fact that we're not having an evacuation or started an evacuation 15 minutes ago. Yes, sir.
You mind clarifying the school situation? I know Jim Foster said that right now a lot of teachers have evacuated.
Well, then, as we progress through the day and we determine just how many teachers evacuated, and here's the problem: there could be a huge staff of school employees that has actually gone to Ohio, Pennsylvania, and other locations. So we got to be careful that we're not asking them to come back to Beaufort County through a storm, because obviously that storm is moving on a northwest trend. So we're just going to have to evaluate that, and the school district will make a decision sometime today, I'm sure, sometime later today. Questions? Neil, you got anything else?
No, sir. Remain prepared.
Thank you all.
Do you remember a case where this has happened before, when evacuation has been?
Over the years, I can't call a particular storm. And can you recall?
Yes.
This may be the first time.
But if I may add, it also adds to the. Let me get over here where I'm lined up. What this does is it illustrates the flexibility that we have learned over the years. This in Floyd, for example, this scenario would not have happened. Once the order was out there, it was out there, period. But through lessons learned, and we've done this now 3 times in 3 years, we've gotten really good at being flexible. For example, the reversal, when we initially created the reversal plan, it was do it, period. We're now in a position where we are prepared for it. We have all the traffic cones, the barricades, and the personnel, but we don't put it in the road because we have the traffic management system and all the intelligent traffic system with the cameras and such to make a real-time decision. Okay, we don't need it yet, situation's building. So the flexibility that we have learned through lessons learned has been demonstrated here with the governor looking at all the information available to him and making a very informed and a very weighty decision that right now Beaufort County does not need to do a mandatory evacuation. What we have seen in the past is tiered evacuations are phased, and those failed miserably every time we ever tried them over the last 30 years. where, take this section now and this section 3 hours, those failed miserably. So the governor made that decision this morning. And again, if the track changes, we're in a posture to react to it appropriately.
Which may lead to my question is, understanding that hurricanes wobble, is there a chance that you may have to reinstate an evacuation at some point?
Enough of a wobble? Yes, sir, that is a possibility. That is why it remains on the table. That's why Captain Owens and his troopers are not packing up and leaving.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we're not standing down the EOC. We're continuing to be ready. We're just not implementing.
What's your message to the people that have already evacuated or were getting in the car when this announcement came down? Do you still recommend that they go, or?
That's an individual decision for each person. If they're not comfortable with the situation as it is and making their own informed decision, then they leave. That's part of the teachers. They saw the situation and they got out last night, so that staff left to get out ahead of what we know. The reversal is now occurring in Charleston on I-26. They're seeing, according to the traffic counters, they're seeing 4 to 6 times the normal volume on I-26. Same thing in Horry County. Well, that is flooding the middle part of the state. And the folks that last night made the informed decision, hey, I want to be out in front of that and go where I want to go, they left. So my recommendation is that's a personal decision. If you're still not comfortable, if you're looking at that track and you're looking at informed sources, weather sources, then go. If you're comfortable with waiting and following informed sources still, then stand pat. And if they have left, if they evacuated to the south, Florida, Georgia, they can come back with no problems. If they evacuated to the north or northwest, let's say they evacuated to Knoxville, they would have to come home now through Atlanta, Macon, and Savannah to get home because they could not come home through Columbia.
Is that the same scenario for high-risk patients who might have been transported out? Are they able to come back in?
That is a question more for the hospitals. You know, the mandatory medical evacuations began yesterday afternoon in preparation for the mandatory general population evacuation because it has to happen that way. The hospitals discharged all the patients they could. The ones that had to be transported, we brought in contract ambulances and we moved them to facilities well inland. And those facilities are in Aiken, Greenwood, Greenville, Spartanburg. They're scattered all over. If they're in those areas, they would not be able to bring them back that way. They would have to make the loop through Atlanta and through Augusta, Macon area. So that is a decision that the hospitals have to make based on the best care that they need to provide for the patients. And I couldn't speak any further than that. You need to pose that question to the hospitals.
Any other idea of flooding in the area based on?
Right now, we are not under a storm surge warning. That warning begins at Edisto Beach. Watch, not warning, excuse me. Watch. The National Hurricane Center does not. That's a new product that they started testing 3 years ago, and it went live last year. They do not begin putting out that information until a watch is posted. So this morning is the first time that information has been posted. As it develops, if the storm surge, if the shift tracks south any, then our northern-facing exposed areas could experience some surge. Same thing like we saw in Matthew, especially in Matthew, was Daughtah, Harbor, Hunting, those islands, because they were facing north and east, were more exposed. So we'll continue to monitor that. That's again one of our decisions as to what we might have to do going forward. If the track shifts south, if the National Hurricane Center moves the storm surge watch south, then we'll be addressing those issues in those locations.
The reopening of county and city facilities, is there any sense of a collaboration that once one opens, everybody's going to open, or?
Absolutely. In the back part of the building, we have the Emergency Operations Center, and adjacent to it, we have the Situation Room, which is where the policy group meets, and that is a representative of every one of the municipalities and county government. We have been meeting steadily since Saturday, and all of the decisions are made as a unified group. And there can be dissension and discussion and all that, but when we finish, we walk out there with a unified position because we want to project a unified message. We've got 185,000 folks in this county that live under one of those government authorities, and so we want everybody pushing the same message. And the cooperation is, we've got a great team in Beaufort County.
So by and large, when the county opens, Hilton Head Island will open, Bluffton government will open, everybody's gonna be kind of on the same.
You're talking without a storm occurring. Without a storm
Right.
occurring. Yes, that would be done in conjunction.
Yeah.
With a storm occurring, it could be a very different scenario.
Will there still be shelters open for those who wanted to evacuate and stay evacuated?
No, because of the evacuation order being lifted, we will stand down the shelters. In fact, the only shelter that was scheduled to be open was the ones that were scheduled to be one was in Barnwell, one was in Jasper County at the Jasper High School, and one was in Allendale at the elementary school. All those have been placed on standby, and they are not open at this time because we are not under a mandatory evacuation order.
Are there any particular warnings for the outlying islands at this point?
No, there are no warnings, watches in Beaufort County.
Any more questions? We appreciate you coming. I don't know that we'll have, I don't know when we'll have another press opportunity, if we even need to, but we'll play that by ear, and Captain Bromwich will notify everyone. Is there anything on the social media side, Bob, we need to talk about?
No, sir, I think it went well. We had
Okay.
some rumors out there about the bridges being closed.
Right.
And I think we were able to address that out front. And I think people understood that that may have happened if lane reversals were implemented. That did
Okay.
not happen.
All right, well, if we do this again, we'll let you know in plenty of advance time, and thank you so much for coming.